Good morning, friends. Directly into machining today because it's finishing day, and I just wanted to get started. I didn't want to sit down and record an intro, so we're going right into the fun. On my pens, the pocket clip is clocked by the screw threads, which is rather annoying. And in this stage, what I'm doing is I'm marking the end caps so they're all fairly close. I screw them into a jig that basically stops against the cap, and then there's a little mark on that jig, and I put in accompanying a little felt mark. I don't have to be crazy specific right now. I just want them to be roughly aligned at this point because when they get married to the pen, then they'll be perfectly aligned. But if I ever have to swap a cap out, I want it to be close. Put them into the fixture, and this fixture, the way it's designed, the pens have to be, or the end caps have to be the exact same length, or they won't bite nice in the jaws. So on one of those, that was a part from an earlier batch, so I had to double check the length, realized it was a few thou out of measurement, and then just basically tuned the end. I give myself enough room to tune the parts so they hold well. Because if they don't hold well, this is what happens. They spin while the machine is cutting the pocket and becomes garbage. If I could open the garbage lid. But when they do get machined nicely, which I oddly enough don't have any footage of, I have no idea why, but I can't go back in time. So I have footage in earlier videos. You'll have to just trust me. Pocket clips fit nice, and the pen clips go in there. Those are the as machined finishes, which are kind of cool. I would like to eventually do an as machined finish pen, but it looks cooler on camera than it does in person. And now we start the tedious stages of finishing, which are honestly probably the most important stages because they make finishing is always the most important. Here what I'm using is a little diamond hone on the inside of the pen bodies, and it just takes all the reaming marks and makes them nice and smooth. I go through a final polishing stage after this, but this one does probably 90% of the work. It's quite fun. I usually throw a podcast on or listen to an audiobook and get through these. I mean, this is technically much faster than it used to be, and I could automate this stage, but that's coming. That's coming down the line because Kurt gets tired, so Kurt eventually sits down. And today was just thoughts. No headphones in the ears or anything. I was just deep in thoughts. Actually, quiet thinking time is decently nice. Sometimes it's fun to have just a monotonous task where you can just let your mind wander. Like, that's where my best ideas come from. Anyways, once the insides are done, we do the outsides. So it's just a quick polish. That just highlights any marks from the... I turned these on the hard hinge from two ends. So I like to see if there's any blend marks and just kind of remove them. And then I know they're ready to go through the final stages and I'm not going to hit any snags. Speaking of snags, the end caps on all these, about 30% of them was just a hair-thin little ring left from between the threading and chamfering operations, which would definitely mess up my clocking. That's what I'm doing here is I'm clocking the clips to the bodies and then just putting a little witness mark so that when I put them in the fourth axis, I know where I'm moving on the body. The fourth axis has a little mark and I can align it by eye and get it close because doing it like 180 degrees out of phase sucks. So just a little pen mark helps my life. I would love to do this on machine, like get the lathe to make me a mark where it's timed, but that's going to take a little bit finagling. So right now we do it this way. Pretty low tech, but it seems to work decently well. This is that little ring that I'm removing off the end caps. Very, very fine, like a little thread fine, but just if it's in there and I screw the cap on, it's going to mess up the clocking, which is annoying. I'm working on ways to get around clocking with the threads, but for right now, it is what it is, and I've found a lot of ways to deal with it. Next, we set the fourth up for the grip milling and for the bolt slot milling. This takes a decent amount of time, so I'm usually doing finishing while it's doing this stage, but I don't have to pay attention to it, so I don't care really how long it takes. One of my little stops flips on the backside, that's where the tailstock is going to go, and then I noticed on the far right vise there was a little burr. I caused that burr. I ran a drill into it. Thankfully, no damage otherwise. But I use the tops of these little vices as reference surfaces, so I'm just stoning away the little mark that the drill point left. Kind of wish I didn't do it, but can't go back in time. So stoning away.
A few moments later.
And then after a boatload of stoning, it is nice and flat again, and it's not an issue. I put a little drop of oil on there to clean off any kind of goo left from stoning, just because everything else is covered in oil, and oil seems to clean things decently well when it's already covered in oil. Next up, I hit all the little risers and the tailstock support with the stone as well, just to take off any, if there's a chip pressed into it or whatnot. I just want to make sure everything is sitting nice and flat. Then we give the fourth axis a nice clean. I printed a little support or a little cover that goes on the end. That just protects the threads and keeps the inside nice and clean, so I don't have to spend so much time making sure it's clean before putting the collet nut in there, and then we're good to go. And while I would have loved to have a shot of the bolt slot being machined and the grips being cut and I could just slowly fade to black and end this vlog, didn't happen because I didn't get that far today. So tomorrow morning we'll start that, but this being a daily vlog, this is where it ends. So thank you guys so much for watching and following along. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.